Are there other people working in your industry, comedians, bookers, entrepreneurs, whatever, Svengalis, whatever, that obviously you will mention no names, that have a similar pattern of behaviour to Mr. Brand? He denies the allegations, of course.
Yeah, it's prolific, absolutely prolific. I have my own Me Too that I still haven't spoke out about because of who he works for, who his best friends are. And this is going back to why are people not talking about it? It's because we would lose work, we would lose other people's work. So all these runners and people that have not essentially turned a blind eye, I don't expect people to stand up next to me and then lose money and not be able to afford to support their families and pay for their mortgages and things like that. And that's essentially what happens. These people are in powerful positions for a reason, and it's the little people that are the ones that are sort of seeing the stuff that can't do anything about it because they're the ones that will pay initially and probably in the end. We'll see how this pans out with Russell Brand.
Well, guys, that is comedian Cerys Nilms. Now, someone I've actually gigged with. I did a show with her quite a few years ago on the Brighton Fringe, just a stand-up comedy evening, and she was emceeing it. Very interesting what she says there. She's had her own comedy Me Too movement. She knows Russell Brand is just the tip of the iceberg in comedy. In fact, I think most of us comics who've gigged for a few years will know men on the circuit who are known to be predatory and to be perhaps of questionable character. But the trouble is, there's very little you can do apart from talk to other comics about it, because you have no evidence. You can't go to the police with, oh, this guy I know who's a stand-up, I think he might be doing X or Y. So unless you can actually catch them in the act or somehow get some sort of evidence, you are quite stuck, and you have to be careful who you take on. They're right, because if you take on the wrong person, you will, of course, lose work. That doesn't mean you shouldn't make a stand and you shouldn't do it, but my point is, you do need to have evidence to back up your claims. Otherwise, you'll look like a mug. They'll come against you and say, you oppressed me, and you will be effectively thrown off the circuit. So I do really understand where she's coming from. She had a few other interesting things to say.
Cerys, were you surprised at these allegations?
No, we've got WhatsApp groups in the industry that highlight people that we should be aware of. So it just takes time for these people's names to come to light.
This WhatsApp group she mentions, I've heard about this. I've had another female comedian confirm that to me, that there is indeed a WhatsApp group that most of the female comedians on the UK circuit are part of, and every time a man misbehaves, they will add that man's name to the WhatsApp group so they know to avoid them at gigs or make sure they keep their distance. So this is real. What's going on is real. It's not just made up. It's not all made up. There are real problems on the circuit, and it is a very difficult situation to deal with, because it can happen not just with the comics but the promoters also, and you always get problematic figures, and it's difficult to deal with them.
Why do you think his name in relation to these allegations had not come to light hitherto?
Well, I think I can only relate back to Catherine Ryan mentioned it quite a while ago. She, even at her profile, her level of CV profile, she was unable to say his name to anybody during any interview, and she blamed it on litigation and things like that. So it comes down to the fact that the backlash off of it is not worth coming out and saying it.
Yeah, so it's strength in numbers to an extent, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, like we've seen this morning, the programme goes out on Saturday night, and this morning we have more women coming forward because one person has made that stand.
I remember once, a few years ago, a female comic saying, oh, I used to do gigs outside of London, but I've stopped doing them now. And I said, well, why? She said, because I got fed up on the car journeys with male comedians of being propositioned or being inappropriately approached whilst in a car, which I couldn't get out of, and felt stuck, so I stopped doing gigs out of town. And I completely understand why, because A lot of comedians take car journeys together because it's much cheaper than taking the train or taking a coach, you know, and you have much freer travel. And often most public services don't run as late as you need them to when you do a gig. So she gave up gigging outside London because she said, I can't risk my safety anymore in cars full of male comedians. So there is a problem. Russell Brand is part of the problem, allegedly, and there are lots of other male comedians who are also part of the problem. And I haven't named names, so I don't need to say allegedly there, because you don't know who they could possibly be.
I mean, I spoke out at the weekend on online, and some of the comments I've got on mine are just disgusting, and it just makes you think, why would I bother? Why do I put myself out there to get this abuse back?
Very good interview there from Keres. I thought she said some really important things. And she also mentioned how Daniel Schloss, the comedian who did actually talk about Russell Brand in the documentary, has come off social media because of the abuse he's receiving. He's receiving abuse for admitting on a TV programme, this is what I heard and this is what I saw. So for some reason, because he did that, he's deserving of abuse. It's remarkable, isn't it? But there we go. It's mad.